Hi everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. In today's video lesson, we're going to be working with a cool primary color palette. And what I have out here is I've got a color wheel drawn out and I've got the word cool on it. And the colors that I'm going to be using, don't need that one. I'm going to be using the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics because these are the colors that are included in one of DecoArt's starter kits. And I thought I would show basically create a palette with this, and then we're going to use these colors to try to match the colors in this orange. So the colors are primary cyan, primary magenta, primary yellow, and I'm also going to be using titanium white and carbon black. I don't use this a lot, but there's some pretty neat things I want to show you when you use black. The other color that's in the starter kit is a cadmium red hue. I'm not using that because I want to use these cool colors. And I want to tell you right off the bat that, I'm going to turn these around so you can see the pigment numbers. Other than the primary magenta, these are mixed colors. This is phthalo blue with a white, and this is two yellows and a white. So they're not pure pigments. They're going to be fine for what we do, but if you're looking at creating, if you want to work with pure pigments, then these are not the colors to use. You may want to go and look at the primary color palette warm, which is what I'm using, or use pure phthalo blue and use pure Hansa yellow light. So the phthalo blue that's in this is PB15-4. So they've processed the phthalo blue, cyanide a little differently. Okay, that's why you've got the PB15, you've got 2, 3, and 4. It's the way that they shift the colors. PV19, this is actually a pigment violet, so it's not a true red. It's more of a violet, but it looks kind of red. So we're going to see what happens. And then the primary yellow, you've got the colors in there. And I'm just checking something here. No, I've got my warm colors over here, which would be ultramarine blue, naphtha red light, and derylid yellow. May bring in Hansa yellow medium, not sure. That's for another video. So we're going to focus on these right now. I put the colors out already. Sorry. I put the colors out already. And I'm going to be using round brushes because it's easier to do color mixing with round brushes because they're easier to clean. So these are the Aqualon brushes, the acrylic handles. They won't crack if they get wet. So number 4, 5, 6, and an 8. And I've got my paper here, which has a splatter on it. You can use scrap paper for this. Just don't use cream colored, use pure white. And this paper shifts a little bit more towards the blue, but that's fine. Just don't use a cream colored paper. Well, the first thing I want to do, let's put out the paints that we have. So I'm just going to put them right on the color wheel. So primary cyan. So if it's a phthalo color, this leans a little bit more towards the green. How do we know that? When you look at it on its own, you really can't tell. But the minute you add white to it, you can see it only goes two ways. This blue will either lean towards violet or lean towards green, and this one definitely leans towards green. Okay. And then we have our primary magenta. Same thing with this one here. It'll only lean two ways. So it'll either lean towards orange or it will lean towards violet. And looking at this, it definitely does not lean towards violet. It's pigment violet. Of course it's going to lean towards violet. But definitely does not lean towards orange. I think I said that right. All right. And then the last one is primary yellow. And this primary yellow doesn't lean more to, it can only go one way. The yellow can either lean towards orange or can lean towards green. And this one's also very easy to see. As soon as you add white to it, you can see this leans towards green. So we're just going to take our pen, and then we're going to primary cyan, primary magenta, and primary yellow. Okay, so we now know where to put it on the color wheel. I'm going to put that over here. So if we know the blue leans towards green, it's not a pure blue-green, but I would say it's probably going to lean right about here. Right about there. The primary magenta. This is more of a red-violet. I'm going to put it right about here. And this is a really good substitute for alizarin crimson. In the Traditions, DecoArt has an alizarin crimson, but for the fluid acrylics, they don't. And then this yellow, okay, this is a base yellow. So the Hansa yellow, medium, Dairlid yellow go more up here. This one I'm going to put right about here. Whoops, should be right there. Not there, right about here. I'll have to cover that with some white. Okay. Let's cover that with some white. Do not want any misunderstandings. How's that? There we go. Alrighty. That's it for the color wheel. That's really all we need to do right now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start mixing up some colors to see what happens when you take these as the primaries and you mix them together. So if we take the primary cyan yellow to make green, and then the primary yellow with the primary magenta to make orange, and all that stuff. So we're going to do that. And this is how, you learn about, just working with a limited palette. Your paintings will be a lot more cohesive. Now the mixed media, the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics, I use those more for mixed media, where the Traditions I use more for the fine art. There's no reason why you can't use these. You just have to experiment. It's also a nice challenge. So if we take primary cyan, and I can actually put these in water now, and then we'll go into a little bit of primary magenta. So what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to get a violet. And I'm going to go over here because I just created the blue violet. This is actually really, really nice. A bit more. So I'm shifting the colors now. Wow. That turned out a little bit better than I expected. And just to let you know, I have never, ever, 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 ever created a primary palette using these paints. This is something completely new. Okay, so let's put these out before they dry out, and they are already starting to dry out. I have to get into the habit of not being so darn cheap with the paint. Because then it makes it more difficult when I have to add the white to it. Okay. So you see what I'm doing? I'm just shifting the color. And I'll be honest with you, creating color palettes is much easier in oils. Okay, then we're going to take our white. Because they don't dry out, you don't have to be in such a hurry. That's this one, so that's more blue. Well, you can see the color starting to shift now. Yep, so it's becoming a little bit more violet now. This is already dry. See how the color's shifting? These are paints that you don't have to buy. Now I need to go bring that a little bit more red. Let's bring that to a bit more red. Okay, let's see if we can get one more in there. And eventually it gets to the point where you're bringing it to the original color. Okay, So we started off, so I would say right about here is where it's the primary cyan plus primary magenta. And then this way we added more primary cyan. And then this way, more primary magenta. So where do these lay on the color palette? Okay, well, Chaos is going to jump on my table. She's going to jump on the table. So this one here is going to lean right about here. And then this one here is going to lean right about here. This one here is going to lean right about here. So you see where I'm going with this? And that's going to go right about here. Okay, so these colors are these colors here, which is like this. Okay, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean this up, and then we're going to go work with the red, the primary magenta, and the primary yellow. Alrighty, so now we're going to work with primary magenta and primary yellow. And with these colors, this is where you're really going to see the true powers of the colors. Now, when you're working with the blues, I mean, it's nice where it gets to the nice violets and all that stuff. When we get to using red and yellows, it's hard to get clean oranges. And sometimes, I know when I work on portrait paintings, that I like, you know, sometimes, especially with the oils, I end up working with a pure orange. I don't mix my own, but we'll see what happens with the acrylics. So we're going to take our primary magenta. Then we're going to go into a little bit of yellow. Actually, why don't I do it this way? Because I ran out of paint last time. Okay, so that's the pure. And then a little bit of yellow. You can already see it starting to shift. See that big difference? Just by adding a little bit of yellow to it. Big difference. Let me get that out of there. Don't want any white contaminating. That's why I'm always rinsing my brushes. And then let's add a little bit more yellow to that. And we'll take some white. Too much white. It's becoming very weak. Very weak. Add more yellow to that. And I think I picked up a bit too much. Yeah, I did. I didn't mix that right. Now we'll put some white in there. There we go. So it is becoming a bit more orange, but you see that it's really not making that much of a difference. Let's go big on this one. If you're working on a canvas, you're not going to have to worry about the paint just going into the paper. That's what I'm dealing with now. I could have gessoed the whole thing, but yeah. You're doing so many of these, you end up just dealing with the paper. See, it's becoming more orange. We keep going with the yellow. You can actually just go across if you want. I want to form it like almost like in a color wheel. And I'm noticing that the orange really isn't becoming clean. It's not a clean orange like peril orange or Paranone orange or even a cad orange. But depending on what you're painting, I mean, it's fine. I rarely use orange by itself because it's just so intense, and orange is not one of my favorite colors other than for Halloween. So this could actually work out very well. I prefer working with pigments. If I want to add white to a pigment, I'll add white to a pigment. I prefer the pigment not being pre-mixed for me. That's just the way I am. That's not saying that this is wrong. And I think what we're going to do now is we're going to really punch that up. I'm starting to see the tints now really starting to show. And eventually it just gets to the point where it just becomes yellow. And now this is starting to become a really pretty sunshine color. And the sunshine color I like using is Derelid Yellow. So you can see that this is very close to that. And let's just do one more. Really punch that up. Whoops. And I'll add some white. There we go. So, do you know what I didn't do? I didn't put it on the color wheel. So what do we do now? I got to put it back on here. So what do we do? We're going to go in reverse. So I'm going to take this. And now we're getting more to right about here. Actually, no, you know what? That's more like that. And then this is now more like this. There's a little bit of red in here. More like that. And the primary magenta, you don't have to add a lot. It's strong because it's a pure pigment. Then we'll take a little bit of this one. It could be a little bit more. All that noise you hear in the background, that's chaos. She's sitting on top of the heat vent and she's giving herself a bath. And we will really never get to a pure red because its primary magenta is not a red, it's a violet. But if we just want to keep putting around that color wheel, there we go. That's actually pretty good. I'm actually not disappointed with these mixtures. I am liking that orange right here. This one here, I am really liking that. So I'm not disappointed with these mixtures. So now we're going to repeat the same thing and we're going to go with the primary cyan and yellow to start making greens. And then from there, we're going to start mixing a couple of the complements to try to make multiple mixtures. Oh, we have to do our earth tones. That's really important. You can't, well, you can't have a painting without earth tones. My painting style, there's always some type of earth tone. And if you've been watching my videos, you know which one is my favorite. That would be burnt sienna. So now we're ready to work with primary cyan and primary yellow. We have a visitor right over here. Chaos jumped on the table. So hopefully she'll leave us alone. When you're working with any type of blue and any type of yellow, you're going to get green. And the problem with just using any blue and any yellow, you'll either get, a dull green or a really intense green, and that may or may not be what you want. So in the lesson to follow, we're going to be working with the neutrals and the complements to neutralize some of the colors so they're not so intense. So that one's going to be an important lesson. So when we start off working with primary cyan and primary yellow, I just want to show how those colors are. You kind of look at the colors and you think, okay, well, equal parts will just make green. You got to be careful because the blue is so powerful. It's got a phthalo, it's phthalocyanine, it's phthalo blue. It can quickly overtake the yellow. So we're going to do this in very, very small pieces. So I've got that much of the blue. And then what I'm going to rinse my brush, because I don't want to be making a whole circular type of color wheel here. See, I had a big chunk of yellow and see how bright it was? The blue is very, very strong. So we have that blue-green, and that's still not quite where I want to take it. Let me just bring that in a bit more. And that blue-green is going to sit right here. And that's where you really see it, when you start adding the white. And then I'm going to go in a bit more yellow. And that's actually not a bad green. That's not a bad green. I'm going to put that right in there. I just put it right here. I'm going to see if I can take it one more step. Yeah, it's becoming a little bit more green. No, that's the yellow-green. Let me just put a bit more blue in there. Yeah, that's actually really nice. I'll take and that's actually really nice. And then we'll take some white. Yeah, that's a really nice yellow, green. All right, so now as we start punching that up now, let's add more yellow to this. And we're going to be in the greens for a really long time. Okay, I'm going to go a bit more. Yes, that's a really good yellow-green. Unfortunately, my color wheel isn't massive. My color wheel isn't massive. And we'll take what's left over in the brush. Much more yellow. And this is now a yellow-green, which would go right here. Let's make that thicker to cover up that white. So using these types of palettes is totally possible. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just depending if you only run into a problem when you're wanting to exactly match a color. When you're wanting to match something exactly, that's when you're going to run into a problem. So we're going to try that experiment with the orange. And you can see I can just keep going and going and going. Let's see how far I can take this. I'm gonna do a really big jump. Just using the leftover paint now in the brush. And you should be able to see what the true underlying colors are. We'll do two more. And you got to do the work for this. You can't just watch the video and just say, oh, okay. You got to actually take the paints that you have and do the work. So you can see what your paints will do for you. And this is where you can go even further, and you can just then go with to actually create this color wheel. You can make it massive, and you can actually just do this and just go all the way around. So this is really interesting. So what you started off with this here, took us all the way to that. So that's really impressive. Where am I surprised? Because I've never done this before with these paints. Where my surprise was how clean these greens look. And I'm liking this right in here. I'm liking that right in there. That's really, really nice. All right, so we know that that's possible. So we've got these colors. So we created all these all these charts here. So this would kind of go, that would go here, and then this one would go here. So we create all these charts, but can we match that orange? And this is what we're going to do in the next segment. Before I go on to matching the orange, there's one thing I forgot to show you. So yellow and black. So just to show you what we can get, I'm going to take a lot more yellow than that. When you think yellow and black, you'd say, oh, it'll just dull down the yellow. And yeah, it will. Oh, let me get a brush that's not so bad. When you add black, it tends to take on a little bit of a green look to it. A bit more black. Oh, too much. But it's all right. Could always do this. It takes on a green look to it. Which is kind of interesting. And the amount of work that you would have to do to get a dull black like this. So this leads me to believe that this black, the carbon black, has a little bit of blue in it. It's on the blue side. Not there's blue in it, it's on the blue side. Make sure I worked that right. Now that's really dark, so what do we have to do? We got to work some white into that. And let's just add a bit more. The tinting strength of this is, the black overtakes it very, very quickly. The black overtakes it very, very quickly. We won't be able to go any further than this. And eventually what happens is that it becomes black altogether. There we go. So what do you learn here? Well, if you don't have a blue to make a green, then you know you can make it with yellow and black. And then eventually you can see that it's starting to take over. And eventually the yellow is completely obliterated. It's gone. All right. So I just wanted to show that. So that's primary yellow. And carbon black. Oh, my writing is atrocious. Alrighty, so let's put that over there. And let's hope that chaos doesn't sit on that. Alright, so let's get back into the orange. So I just picked up an orange. Actually, it's about a week old, so it's kind of soft. And the view that you're looking at is directly on top. The camera is right up here, so you're looking straight on top. I'm looking at it. When I'm looking at it, I'm looking in this direction here. So color matching, what I'm going to be color matching will be different from what you're color matching. So I highly, highly, highly suggest that you use a photograph or go to the store and buy an orange strictly for painting. And I would look for an orange that had 3 leaves on it and a long stem, because that way it makes it easier to set up a little still life. So you can set it up like that. So I'll provide some pictures when we actually do the painting of the orange in a separate course. You'll have all the pictures you need. So I'm going to be just looking at matching this. So if I look at the color wheel, you know, there are some colors there that are close. There are some colors that are close. So this should be fairly simple. Fairly simple, she says. I shouldn't be so overconfident. Okay. I know that I have to start by making an orange. That's a gimme. You know, when you look at something to paint, you look at what's the primary color? Well, it's orange. We don't have an orange. Well, we could if I just took Paranoid Orange. So let's just make it orange. So we'll just make a basic orange, primary yellow, primary magenta, and we have a basic orange. And it may not look orange on here. Don't judge it because this is the unstick matte. It's brown. The paints are transparent, so you have to make a paint swatch. Well, that was a little too easy. What you can do as well is you take some little sample leftover little bits of paper. And all this is I just trimmed down this paper down so it would fit in my scanner when I create the visuals. So this is the excess. You create your swatch like this, and you go right up to what you're painting, and that is like super close. Super close. So I'm thinking, okay, well, we got it. So now we have our cast shadow here. We got a dark here. So if we want to make it dark, what are we going to do? Well, we look at our color wheel. When we want to dull stuff down, you look at opposites. I like to add neutrals, but you look at opposites. So if we want to take orange, we want to neutralize it. So we want to dull it down. We go opposite to the color wheel, and you're looking at the blues here. These ones right here. Okay, so we can take, as the oranges become a little bit more red, you're going to go more to the greens. And as the oranges become a bit more yellow, you're going to go towards the violets. But so you're going to be working right in here. So we want to neutralize that. So specky, specky, speck. Specky, speck. And let's just get a little bit more. Oh, too much, too much, too much, too much. So I'm going to go right in here. So that's the dull orange. Right in here. And what you're not, so what I'm looking at is the cast shadow right under here. And that's actually pretty good. And there's a shadow right here. So right in there, yep, so that's fine. So you can see that's, and maybe the cast shadow under there. I wouldn't be worrying about here. I'm looking from your angle what you're seeing. So I'm thinking right in there. All right, so, well, let's add some white to that so we can see what the true underlying color is. Oh yeah, it's still orange. Well, what about the brighter part of the orange? Well, if we make our orange again, it's going to take a little less magenta this time. And that may be just a little too bright. I don't know. That's definitely too bright. That's definitely too bright. We need to add a bit more magenta to that. It's a little intense. The value isn't quite right. If you squint your eyes, the value is not right. Gonna add a little bit more magenta to that. And we're gonna have to make more paint. Now, I want you to keep something in mind. If you are learning how to do this, you are not going to get it right on the first bat. Okay, you're going to need to practice. And there's nothing more satisfying than creating a whole bunch of color swatches because you're learning about color. Keep everything in a journal. That way you're not going to lose it. So the value up here is right. The intensity is wrong. So we need to dull that down a bit, and we can go again with a speck of the blue. No. So I'm not liking how that blue is neutralizing that orange. Not liking it. Not liking it at all to get this right here. I mean, it is bright, but I'm not liking that. If I take, that's fine. This one here, that's okay. But right about in here, it's a little bit duller, and I'm not liking that mixture. So let's just make another batch. A little bit more. We'll try to get it back to that bright orange. Oh, there we go. All right, so that's actually not too bad. That's actually not too bad. And then when you're getting to the little brighter highlights, add a little bit more yellow. And as you move closer to the light source, because right now the light source is from the top, so you're going to have the brightest areas here, and it's going to get darker, a little bit duller and darker as it goes down. So when you're looking at it here, so that's when you can see the light changes. As the light changes, then your colors are going to change as well. Okay, that's too yellow. Up here, that's too yellow. Down here, it's a different story. Okay, same thing with this one here. This is the better one. Okay, down here it's fine. When you come up here, it's a completely different color. You'd have to make it more orange. So this is one of the things where if you're looking to match 100%, you're going to be spending a long time doing it. You may want to just look at then getting a pre-mixed orange. So let's say if I just, show you like the Perignon orange, you still have to add something to this, but don't go crazy on being perfect. And if you want to make your painting look like a photograph, buy the photograph and put it on the wall. It's a lot less work. So that's pretty close to what we're going to get. That's already a little bit dull. Now what happens if we try to dull it with black? Yeah, that really dulled it down. That really dulled it down. So a little bit more. You can see I'm being very careful how much black I add. Get more paint. That's actually not bad. But what I'm looking at is right under here. So that's actually not bad, which is a little bit more on the yellow side to that one. Well, what if we add a little bit more red? So I'm finding with these colors for the orange, they're a little bit more limiting. Do you know why? Because an orange is warm. The orange is made with red and yellow. The colors we're using here, this is a yellow green, and that's a more of it's a red violet, like a violet. It's a red violet. So you've got blue in this, and then you've got green in this. This is orange. So what do you do in this case? You work with what you have. You work with what you have. You don't fuss. You don't fuss. You just work with what you have. And you can see that I can take this dirty color, and I can still make up the oranges that I need with the different intensities. Okay, and that's actually pretty close. Make sure I don't eat that orange now. Pretty close. So you can still work with this, and you could. And when we get to actually the lesson of creating the painting, we are going to be using the limited palette. You'll see that just because you don't have the colors match perfectly, it's an orange. When you're getting to portraits and that's a different story. And there's many different artists that say, they have their own palettes of colors. And if you want to see a palette that's so limited, and then the paintings he created, look up the master artist, Zorn, Z-O-R-N, and take a look at his paintings. They may or may not be your style. That's not the point. Look at the paintings and then check out the palette that he used, and you'll be so surprised on the palette he used. All right, so we've got our oranges. Now we got to work on our neutrals. So, well, let's do this right. So we'll clean this up here. The neutrals are the earth tones. And I've already created the many videos when what happened, we use burnt umber, burnt sienna, raw umber, raw sienna, and all that stuff. But let's say you don't have those paints. They're so inexpensive, and at least burnt sienna and burnt umber you should have in your palette. They're very inexpensive. Buy the good quality though, don't buy crap. Because cheap paints have more filler, and you'll end up using more to try to get proper coverage, and you're not going to get the proper color. I'd rather you buy seven tubes of paint. For the professional stuff I use is the Traditions, but I prefer you spend $7 for a tube of paint and buy 7 paints versus buying 20 paints at $3 a piece. It's So the earth tones, if we think of we want to make something like a raw sienna, so we're going to start. Raw sienna is a yellow. I don't know if we're going to get it with this. So we're going to make an orange. Well, actually, you know what? I don't even know why I'm doing this exercise because that's raw sienna right there. That's raw sienna right there. Well, not pure raw sienna. It's a bit more opaque, the raw sienna, but then when you add white to it, it's still kind of orangey. You're not going to get an exact match. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. That's too red, and when it's too red, then you add more yellow. And it's shift, 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 shift. I'm going to keep that because that's for another mix we're going to make. Okay. And just to show you, just to show you, ooh, that's raw sienna right here. That's pure raw sienna right there. So yeah, that'll work. And while we're here, let me take this one. And I probably should write this down, right? Matching an orange. And then this one here is matching raw sienna. I can probably move this now. Chaos is eyeballing it. She likes to chew the leaves. What about a burnt sienna? Right there. Right there. Oops, ran out of paint. Make up some more so I can go right into the pile because you're only using 3 colors. They can only go one way. Something will either be too blue, too yellow, or too red. Look at that green. Add more red to dull it. If it's green, if it's too green, add red to dull it. And this is actually close to raw umber. Bring all that color in there. There we go. So can we, it's actually not bad. Gotta add white. It's getting dark. There we go. Yep, that works. That works for me. That works for me. It's looking that it's still a little bit too yellow. I can add a speck of red to that. That's better. Still a little bit too yellow. Okay, so that's matching burnt sienna. And it will never be as clean a color. Sienna. It will never be as clean a color because burnt sienna is a single pigment. It'll never be a clean color because you're using more. The minute you make a color with 2 paints, it's not going to be clean. All right, so burnt umber. You notice that all these colors are just being made with just 3 colors. And then the white to see the true underlying color. Burnt umber is just a dark brown. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if it's a dark brown, it's a dark reddish brown. Well, let's go back and make our orange. And I need more red. Or more magenta. This one's going to be the interesting one. This one's going to be the interesting one. And then we got to add our blue to neutralize. And on the unstick mat, it's very hard to see. Where's my little swatches? Oh, Mia's home. Oh, and actually that didn't turn out too bad. That didn't turn out too bad. So I'm going to put that right in there, and then we'll add our white. So that was pretty straightforward. That was pretty straightforward. So we were able to make everything around the color wheel. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put them in here. I forgot to put them in there. So let's do it again. Make our orange. I'm going to do all the color that we just did right in here. Oh, made it too green. What do we do? Add the opposite. Add more red. And then we're going to add a bit more yellow. This is close to raw umber. That's close to raw umber. Need to add a little bit more red. And yeah, that's close to burnt umber. And then we had what? We had raw sienna. Okay, raw sienna is more red and more yellow. Right there. And actually, this is in the wrong order. Well, they're all actually more the reddish colors. And then I'm going to take the yellow right here by itself. And that's raw sienna. And then typically black goes in the middle. When you add all primaries together, you get what I call it, like a chromatic black. So that's it. So that's how we made our color palette using just primary colors. This is matching burnt umber. And you know, it's like I said, with the experiment with the orange, you're not going to get the perfect match. It's impossible. Okay, it all depends on the type of blue, the type of red, and the type of yellow that you use to get this. I may have been able to get the perfect match if I had just switched primary magenta to, let's say, Naphthol red light, because Naphthol red light is a red that leans towards orange, where primary magenta leans more towards the blue. It's violet. So by already using a red that leans towards orange, it's going to be so much easier to color match. But in saying that, again, you came up with some pretty good matches here, some pretty good mixtures that would work for painting this orange. No problem. No problem. Alrighty, so I'm going to clean up and I'm going to go make Joe a coffee. They just came back from a nice walk in a snowstorm. Lucky me, I'm inside here. And I'm going to prepare for the next video, and the other video will be the primary color palette using warm colors, and we're going to repeat the exact same exercises. That way you can see how versatile it is just using a limited palette. We're talking extreme limited palette. This is a primary color palette. So you'll be able to see how easy it is to create your mixtures. So until I see you in that video, stay inspired.